Those who have had a childhood betrothal know that it often carries the affection and expectations of the elders. It not only has a special bond, but also bears the beautiful visions of two families, and may even become a lifelong tie. I also had a childhood betrothal arranged by my grandfather. His comrade-in-arms has reached a high position, and everyone thinks I am marrying above myself. But they don't know that my grandfather was seriously injured while saving his comrade-in-arms, and then transferred to civilian work. And I have never needed to rely on climbing up the social ladder to live. After my grandfather's funeral, the lust buried his body, and it seemed to seal away my past life as well. I decided to leave, and took stock of all my belongings. Surprisingly, a small school bag could hold everything. The driver from the Han family came to pick me up. He spoke in a nonchalant and dismissive tone. Just bring the valuable items. The Han family has everything prepared for you. Looking at his expression, it seemed that everything in my home was nothing but worthless junk in his eyes. I remained silent. Although I was a bit indignant in my heart, I also understood that arguing at this moment was meaningless. I just nodded silently. This school bag was all my luggage carrying the bits and pieces of my past years. The driver vigorously rubbed his shiny leather shoes on the lush ground, and then casually sat in the driver's seat. The car started raising a cloud of dust all the way. I knew this was a farewell to the place where I had lived for many years. The Han family, the place that was about to take me in, was full of unknowns to me. The old man of the Han family and my grandfather were once comrades-in-arms who fought side by side. It is said that their friendship was deep back then, and they forged a life-and-death bond in the hail of bullets. 15 years ago, perhaps out of mutual trust and expectation, the two families arranged a childhood betrothal. Now that my grandfather has passed away suddenly at the last moment of his life, he entrusted me to the Han family. A letter of entrustment carried his earnest expectations for my future. Over the years, the Han family's status in all sectors of society has been at its peak. They have their hands in the military, political, and business worlds with a huge influence. And my grandfather and I were just ordinary rural folks. After my grandfather retired and returned to his hometown, he took root in this yellow land, working at sunrise and resting at sunset, spending a plain but peaceful life. He often said that he had no regrets in this life, and the only thing he couldn't let go of was me, who was not yet an adult. In fact, I knew clearly in my heart that I had the ability to take care of myself. But my grandfather was worried that my missing and unreliable parents might suddenly show up and harm me. After all, I was only 17 years old this year, and was still rather naive in this complex world. Child, you must study hard. Only by studying can you get out of this poor and remote place and change your fate. Since the first day I entered school, my grandfather often whispered this in my ear. I engraved it in my heart and regarded it as a guiding light for my journey. Now when I stepped into the Han family's mansion, which was like a dreamy castle, my heart was filled with shock. The luxury of the Han family was beyond imagination. The magnificent buildings and spacious courtyards, every detail exuded wealth and power. I couldn't help but think of the two sheep raised at home. They had been slaughtered at my grandfather's funeral to entertain the guests. Once they were my life companions, but now only memories remained. This is Zhengzheng, right? I'm your grandpa Han. The old man Han sitting in the main seat saw me. A complex emotion flashed in his eyes, and his excitement was palpable. His eyes even reddened slightly. He enthusiastically introduced the people present to me one by one, and I politely followed his introductions to address them. Finally, he emphasized and introduced a boy. This is Hani, 2 months older than you. I understood in my heart that this was the person who had a childhood betrothal with me. Just hearing others call him, I immediately called out, Brother Hani. Hani just nodded indifferently without any sign of greeting, and his attitude was very distant. From his expression, I could see his dissatisfaction with this childhood betrothal. Coincidentally, I was also not very willing about this betrothal. In my opinion, marriage should be based on mutual understanding and love, not decided casually by the elders like this. Good child, from now on consider this place your own home. If you have any needs, just tell Grandpa. Grandpa Han's words were full of kindness, but I couldn't regard this place as my real home as he expected. Here I always felt like an outsider. I found that the lifestyle of the wealthy was very different from what I was used to. Every meal, the dining table was filled with a wide variety of dishes, but they just took a few bites, and then said they were full and wanted to lose weight. I was very puzzled and couldn't help asking Nanny Wang, who was in charge of cooking, can't we cook less? So much is being wasted. Nanny Wang looked calm and replied indifferently, Miss Zhou, the family doesn't lack this bit of money. There's no need to save. Looking at her accustomed expression, I suddenly felt it was familiar. After careful thought, it was exactly the same as the expression of the driver uncle. Later I learned that they were a family. There was always food left over from each meal. I thought of taking it to feed the stray cats and dogs around, but after walking around the mansion, I didn't even see a single shadow of a wild cat or dog. I couldn't help but sigh that even the living standards of cats and dogs in the city were higher than those in the countryside. The gatekeeper uncle told me, Some children are afraid of these wild cats and dogs, so they were all driven away. Hearing this, I couldn't help feeling a bit disappointed. It turned out that this seemingly prosperous city was not as beautiful as it seemed on the surface. The Han family had extremely high work efficiency. In the second week after I arrived, they arranged my school matters. Learning that I could return to school, I finally heaved a sigh of relief. In my heart, studying has always been a fun thing. Han Yi and I were arranged to be in the same school, and even in the same class. Grandpa Han specifically told him to take care of me more. But I really don't understand. Going to school is an ordinary thing. What special care is needed? Perhaps I forgot to mention that my academic performance has always been extremely outstanding, even exceptional. My grandfather often praised me as a genius. I, however, thought he was exaggerating. I just worked harder than others. However, as soon as Han Yi promised to take care of me, he changed his tune once we got in the car and said coldly, "When we get to school, don't say you know me and don't bother me." Although I was a bit displeased in my heart, I didn't argue with him, and just nodded silently. Of course, I didn't remind him that we were going to school in the same car. When we arrived at school, I saw a banner with Han Yi's name hanging at the school gate from afar. When I got closer, it turned out to be a confession from a girl to him. "Prince Yi, can I be your Snow White?" Seeing such a scene, I couldn't help but be astonished. Do people in the city confess so exaggeratedly? Han Yi seemed to be accustomed to this, although a bit impatient. He still walked into the school calmly and waved to the surrounding fangirls. He turned his head and said disdainfully to me, "See, country bumpkin, come talk to others about knowing me when you're half as pretty as them." I secretly rejoiced in my heart that I had never intended to acknowledge this childhood betrothal. Looking at his complacent look, I was filled with disgust and said to the driver, "Uncle, park the car at the back door. I don't want to have anything to do with him." At this moment, I was more afraid than Han Yi that others would know we knew each other. I got out of the car carefully, fearing to be discovered. Under the guidance of the driver uncle, I came to the classroom. However, the scene in front of me was completely different from what I had imagined. The class bell had already rung, but the teacher hadn't shown up yet. In the classroom, half of the students were taking a nap on their desks, and the rest were chatting, playing games, or casually flipping through books. A twinge of regret welled up in my heart. Perhaps I shouldn't have come here at all. But as soon as this thought emerged, I forcefully suppressed it. Since I'm here, I might as well make the best of it. "Hey, are you a new student?" My desk mate was an enthusiastic and lovely girl with fair skin, big and bright eyes, long eyelashes, but her hair was curly and yellowish. She took the initiative to talk to me, and I responded politely. "I just transferred here. Where are we in the study progress now? I want to see if I need to take makeup classes," I asked. She looked at me in surprise and retorted, "Wow, you actually ask about the progress. What if you fall behind?" I was a bit puzzled and replied, "If I fall behind, I'll take makeup classes." She then asked, "Oh, does your family hire a makeup teacher? Aren't you going to study abroad?" "Teacher, do we still need to hire a makeup teacher for high school knowledge?" We looked at each other in dismay and fell silent for a while. Then she emphasized, "This is an international class. What are you doing in an international class?" Only then did I realize that the situation here was completely different from what I had imagined. Someone else arranged it for me. I replied helplessly. She seemed a bit speechless. After a pause, she said, "All right, my name is Enran. What about you?" "My name is Zhou Zheng. Zheng is an unyielding." Enran became my first friend here. She kindly reminded me, "Students in the international class don't take the college entrance examination. They just need to be able to speak English. Everyone is preparing to go abroad in the second half of the year." Hearing this, I was shocked. I had never thought about going abroad. I was determined to get into Q University, so I decided to talk to the teacher. "You want to transfer to a regular class?" The head teacher was a middle-aged man with a worrying hairline and an obvious beer belly. He looked at me in confusion. "Yes, I want to take the college entrance examination," I replied firmly. The head teacher seemed not to understand and asked, "You're not going abroad?" I was very surprised. Why did he assume I was going abroad? "I'm not going abroad. I want to take the college entrance examination," I emphasized again. Fortunately, I brought my previous report cards. These grades should be able to prove my strength. The head teacher looked at the report cards and fell into silence. The balding math teacher next to him came over and took a look, exclaiming in surprise, "Wow, full marks in math," I said modestly. Previously, the teacher said that math is the foundation of all subjects, so I put more effort into math. The math teacher nodded continuously, his eyes full of admiration. His look at me changed instantly, as if I had become his favorite disciple. The head teacher was also shocked by my grades. He said slowly, "Han Yi's mother called me and said you were going to go abroad with Han Yi. So that's where the problem lay." It seemed that my minor status indeed brought many restrictions, and I couldn't make any decisions completely independently. The head teacher sighed and said, "I'll talk to Han Yi's mother again. You really should take the college entrance examination." From his words, I felt his cherishing of talent. Teachers are truly a sacred profession. The head teacher's willingness to help is one thing. And I also have my own thoughts. Once again, I reiterate that I have no interest in this childhood betrothal. My grandfather just hoped that I could stay in a safe place until I reached adulthood. He left me a letter to cancel the betrothal. It said, "Child, this is an era of free love. The old way is no longer in vogue. If you two like each other, get along. If not, cancel this betrothal anyway. I'm gone. Just insist that it's my request. They can't come down and ask me." My grandfather was open-minded all his life, and never had the intention of currying favor with the powerful. He was injured and retired from the military when he saved Old Man Han that year, and he never complained. I was deeply influenced by my grandfather, and could also take things easy and adapt to circumstances since my lifestyle was so different from that of the Han family. Why force myself to adapt? I decided to talk to Old Man Han, and came to the study of the Han family. This was a forbidden area in the Han family. Usually, no one would come up here. I could enter directly. It seemed that my status in the Han family was rather special. Old Man Han was reading the Great Emperor Kangxi with reading glasses. He didn't say a word, so I stood quietly in front of the desk and waited. After a long time, he closed the book and looked at me with bright eyes, asking, "Zheng, I was just reading about Emperor Kangxi. Do you know which sentence impressed me the most?" I answered truthfully, "I don't know." He nodded slightly and said slowly, "To be an emperor, one must be able to endure grievances to achieve great things." His eyes revealed a profound wisdom, not at all like an old man on the verge of death. At that moment, I seemed to see the shadow of my grandfather in him, and a complex emotion welled up in my heart. Old Man Han's words were well reasoned and full of profound meaning, but in my heart, I couldn't help but wonder, why should I make myself suffer grievances? So I told him frankly, "Grandpa Han, I don't have the grand ambitions of Emperor Kangxi. I just want to live an ordinary life." I believed every word I said was from the bottom of my heart, but judging from Old Man Han's expression, he didn't seem to believe me very much. He changed the subject and asked, "What do you think of Han Yi?" Instantly, the embarrassing scene in the morning surged into my mind like a tide. I felt a chill and, after careful consideration, squeezed out 2 words. "Fine." The old master of the Han family continued, "Han Yi is the leading figure of the next generation of the Han family among the young talents in Beijing City. He is also quite renowned. Your uncle and aunt are both kind-hearted and generous people. In the future, they will surely treat you as their own beloved daughter." I knew in my heart that the old master of the Han family must have heard about the things that Han Yi's mother had done. As for Han Yi's father, after I briefly met him on the first day I came to the Han family, he disappeared without a trace. I heard others whispering privately that he had another family outside. I really couldn't figure out why the old master of the Han family was praising his own family like this. Could it be that he wanted me to marry into the Han family? I composed myself and got straight to the point. "Grandpa Han, I'm determined to take the college entrance examination. Anyway, I always kept in mind the purpose of my visit today." The old master of the Han family furrowed his brows and said, "If you don't accompany Han Yi to go abroad, what if he falls in love with another woman? What will you do then?" I couldn't help but wonder in my heart, what does this have to do with me? It seemed that the Han family was afraid that Han Yi would act recklessly abroad, and wanted someone to keep an eye on him. But I didn't want to get involved in such a thankless task. I took out the letter left by my grandfather from my pocket, and handed it to the old master of the Han family. He took the letter, read it carefully, and let out a long sigh. "Since that's the case, let it be." At this moment, I vaguely heard the conversation between Grandpa Han and Aunt Han. Aunt Han said worriedly, "Dad, what if Han Yi goes astray outside? Are you really not going to let that girl go with him?" The old master of the Han family spoke in a calm but firm tone. "Her grandfather saved my life back then, let it be." Aunt Han then asked, "What about the betrothal agreement?" The old master of the Han family replied to her, "There is no real betrothal agreement. It was just a joke among the elders." Then I heard Aunt Han say, "Then it's not very appropriate for her to live here. Han Yi is not young anymore, and they are of similar ages." The old master of the Han family thought for a moment and replied, "Find her a house close to the school." That's excellent. The saying, "Distance makes the heart grow fonder," really does make some sense. Maybe they will even feel affectionate towards me when they see me in the future. Besides, Han Yi and I were never going to have any entanglements. I believe that Aunt Han won't look at me with that critical gaze anymore. By chance, I caught sight of a sentence in the book. "One may appear benevolent and righteous on the surface, but be full of malice in the heart." Not long after, I successfully transferred to a regular class, the kind of class where I could attend classes normally and take the college entrance examination. When the head teacher learned that I was leaving, he looked regretful, but there was more relief in his expression. The math teacher was quite calm and smiled, saying, "Coincidentally, I'm still the math teacher of this class." And Ran whispered to me secretly, "The math teacher is the spouse of the school principal." Upon hearing this, I couldn't help but feel a deep respect for the math teacher. It seemed that this relationship was quite special. And Ran readily accepted my transfer and vowed that I would definitely surprise everyone. I felt a bit reluctant and proposed. If you want to take tutoring lessons, I can help you. And Ran shook her head vigorously like a rattle. No way I am going abroad to study design. I really won't take the college entrance examination. Seeing her such determination, I had to give up this idea with regret. After that, Ran gossiped to me about the affairs in the class. You should pay attention to those two girls in class 3. They seem to be good friends on the surface, but they actually like the same boy, and this person is their love rival, and also likes that boy. After listening for a long time, I found that the person they all liked was actually Han-yi. I really couldn't understand the current students' aesthetics. Could it be that I couldn't keep up with the trend? I pointed at the boy who was reading a book at his seat and said to Ran, I think he is more handsome than Han-yi. Although I could only see his profile. A person who studies seriously looks handsome no matter how you look at him. And Ran quickly lowered her voice, fearing to disturb that person. Of course he is more handsome than Han-yi. It's okay to say you like Han-yi. But Huashun is everyone's white moonlight. Saying you like him is simply blasphemous. I secretly laughed in my heart, and felt a bit embarrassed for Huashun. However, the person involved must be even more embarrassed. I clearly saw that his ears were red. Haha. Just because of Huaxinyan's red ears, my good impression of this white moonlight in everyone's eyes increased significantly. Huaxinyan, being called the white moonlight, is not without reason. He has long occupied the top spot in the grade rankings. He has won the gold medal in the Olympic mathematics competition, and the gold medal in the junior group of the International Equestrian Competition. He is proficient in 5 foreign languages, and can speak with great ease at United Nations meetings. I heard that he has a unique investment vision, and rarely makes mistakes now. He has already started to get involved in the affairs of his family company. In his daily interactions with others, he is gentle and elegant, making people feel as if they are bathed in a spring breeze. In everyone's eyes, he is almost perfect, just like the unreachable bright moon in the sky, which makes people yearn for him, but it's hard to get close to him. There are many rumors about him, whether people know him or not. They can chat about him. I regarded it as a pastime during my study breaks. However, I noticed that the white moonlight was often absent from school. The classmates explained all at once. Huashun already has a guaranteed admission quota. It doesn't matter whether he comes to school or not. But I think Huashun might still take the college entrance examination. He is still participating in the exams organized by the school now. He will definitely take it. I saw that Huashun has been reading and doing exercises all the time after confirming his guaranteed admission. I looked blank and couldn't help raising my hand to ask, what is guaranteed admission? How does it work? The classmates looked at me with pity in their eyes, as if they were looking at a poor person who had been hungry for a long time. Someone patiently explained, guaranteed admission, as the name implies, means that you can enter university directly without taking the college entrance examination. After hearing this, I felt a sense of loss in my heart, and silently reviewed the relevant knowledge about guaranteed admission, and studied the competition questions. Throughout the whole afternoon, I kept sighing and was filled with regret. If I had known this earlier, maybe my grandfather could have seen me enter university. Perhaps startled by my continuous sighs throughout the afternoon, Huaxinyan was probably afraid that I would do something rash. Out of concern among classmates, he asked, "What's wrong with you? Are you not feeling well?" I was in a bad mood and thought irritably, "Yes, I feel even worse when I see you." I lay prone on the desk, ignoring him, and allowing myself a little caprice. The classmates in the classroom left one after another, and I also prepared to go home. When I looked up, I found a piece of candy on the desk. It was actually my favorite White Rabbit creamy candy. After this candy-giving incident, the relationship between Huaxinyan and me became much closer. We often compete in solving problems, seeing who can do it faster, better, and with more methods each time. I have a slight edge. Most of the classmates in the class were going all out for the college entrance examination. Seeing our competitive learning spirit, they became even more hard-working, wishing they could hold books even while eating. Even those little girls who liked Han, he no longer had the heart to pay attention to his news. Their so-called love was just a momentary crush, so light-hearted that a gust of wind could dispel it. On the other hand, the classmates in the international class were very leisurely. They had already decided on their foreign schools, and were just waiting for the start of school to go abroad. High school life went on day after day. It was somewhat oppressive and made people anxious. But when looking back, one could always be touched by that passionate and beautiful youth. One day during the break, someone gossiped, "Have you heard? Han-yi and Du Manor from class 1 are together." Han-yi's relationship instantly became a hot topic. Really? When did this happen? Why didn't I know? Isn't Han-yi going abroad? Du Manor is going to take the college entrance examination. They were far away from the international class, and didn't meet often on weekdays. They regarded this as just idle gossip during the break, and no one delved into the truth. Everyone was still more interested in the familiar classmates around them. Someone suddenly asked me, Zheng, what kind of person do you like? They didn't dare to ask Huasinian, so I, who was the closest, was caught in the crossfire. What kind of person did I like? I really hadn't thought about it carefully. After thinking for a while, I said seriously, someone who won't hinder my progress and can progress together with me. I won't change myself for others, nor do I expect others to change for me. My answer surprised everyone a little, and they all said they would follow my example. Even Huasinian, who was calculating a problem, stopped his pen when he heard this and nodded thoughtfully. The news of Han Yi's relationship spread like wildfire in the school. I wonder if the teachers knew about it. Presumably they should know. Teachers have always been well informed about such things. If it were kept low-key, it would be okay, but if it was too high profile, one would definitely be called to invite their parents that day. I saw Aunt Han at the school gate. I heard that someone locked Du Manor in the toilet yesterday and splashed water all over her. It was winter. When Hani found out, he severely beat the culprit and warned everyone not to bully Du Manor anymore, or they would have to deal with him. But what if someone deliberately went against him and bullied people on purpose? Before leaving, Aunt Han came to see me specially. Looking at her bad complexion, I guess she was very angry with her precious son. She tried to soften her tone and make her words sound gentler. Zheng, Auntie asks you, can you keep an eye on your brother Hani at school? I showed a look of embarrassment. We are quite far apart, and brother Han, he doesn't want me to tell others that I know him. Aunt Han's face became even uglier, losing her former elegance as a noble lady. I don't know what Hani sees in that woman. She's so petty and only knows how to cry. I didn't think so. Occasionally when I met Du Manor, she didn't seem like someone who only knew how to cry. However, I also knew that Aunt Han definitely wouldn't like to hear this, so I just mumbled in agreement and saw her to the door. Before leaving, Aunt Han said, Zheng, Auntie still likes you the most. You are the ideal daughter-in-law candidate for our Han family. Thank you, but really, there's no need. Many classmates around heard this, and their eyes on me instantly became full of curiosity and excitement. I returned to the classroom with a helpless look on my face, and met the gossipy eyes of my classmates head on. They didn't even do their practice problems well during self-study. It was really disappointing. Before they could start asking questions, I took the initiative to confess. The elders arranged a childhood betrothal, but it was cancelled long ago. And I haven't even spoken a few words. Even Huasinian couldn't escape this gossip flood. He was actually listening too. To facilitate our competition in solving problems at any time, Huasinian applied to the teacher to change seats, and now we became deskmates. I knocked on his desk with my pen and took out a math problem. This was the signal for our battle to start. After winning a round, I was in a great mood, and all the gloom was swept away. But this good mood didn't last long. After school, Hani came looking for me. I was used to staying a little longer after school to learn some knowledge outside the textbooks. In the end, only Huasinian and I were left in the classroom. I was solving a math problem, and he was reading a finance-related book. Recently, I suddenly got a little idea about a math problem that had puzzled me for a long time, and I was trying to see if I could solve it. Alas, it's still wrong. I was a bit frustrated. The direction of solving the problem was wrong again. Huasinian also closed his book and turned sideways to look at my calculation process. After looking at it for a while, he said helplessly, I don't understand. He was quite honest. I secretly felt proud in my heart. I dared to say that no one could compare with me in mathematical talent. Even those famous mathematicians, limited by the times they lived in, had their limitations. I must be the greatest mathematician of this century. After belittling Huasinian a bit, my confidence returned. It's just that I made a calculation error this time. I'll try a different approach tomorrow. Just as I was thinking about how to console Huasinian and tell him that I have been delving into this problem for several years, Han Yi's furious shout, like a thunderclap out of the blue, abruptly interrupted my train of thought. Zheng, what on earth have you been spouting recklessly at school? Spouting recklessly? I have always been cautious in my words and deeds. Every word I say is well-founded, and I would never utter a word without verification. This is the most fundamental rigorous attitude for a future mathematician. So with a look of bewilderment on my face, I replied, I don't understand what you mean by speaking irresponsibly. Han Yi's face grew even darker, as if a tempest were about to break. He demanded, did you spread the news about our betrothal? It was just a childhood betrothal arranged out of the elders' wishful thinking. Why do you take it so seriously? At this moment, he was like an enraged bull, exuding a menacing aura, as if he would charge at me the next second. Huasinian seemed to sense the danger as well. Subconsciously, he reached out and shielded me behind him, saying calmly, Classmate Han, in my opinion, you'd better go home and ask Aunt Han about these. As far as I know, the news originated from your mother. I nodded hastily, groaning inwardly. I wanted this dark history to be exposed less than anyone else. Hani obviously knew his mother's character well. Upon hearing this, his imposing manner instantly diminished. Then Hani added, "Since you're already with Hwasinian, stop thinking about me. And don't you dare say anything mean to Manor." Just listen to what he said. My anger flared up instantly. After Hani left, I caught sight of Hwasinian chuckling beside me. Chuckling? What's so funny? I couldn't help clenching my fists, thinking that if he admitted to laughing at me, I would give him a punch without hesitation. Fortunately, Hwasinian shook his head in time and explained, "I just didn't expect classmate Han to have such a personality." Just after being warned by Han not to approach Du Manor, who would have thought that I would run into her unexpectedly the next day? Even faster than the saying, "Speak of the devil, and he appears." Du Manor said earnestly, "Classmate Joe, I've been waiting for you here on purpose." She was completely different from what Aunt Han had described. Although she seemed delicate on the outside, she was actually tough on the inside, with a unique sparkle in her eyes. Out of caution, I still maintained a distance of 3 steps from her and asked, "What do you want from me?" The corners of Du Manor's mouth lifted slightly, revealing a faint smile, but there was a hint of coldness in it. She said slowly, "I just found out last night that Hani went to see you. I'm really sorry. I also learned yesterday that you and Hani once had a betrothal." I interrupted her hastily. "It's already called off." I thought to myself, I really don't want to get involved in your love-hate entanglement. Du Manor's eyes flashed with surprise upon hearing this, and then she said, "Actually, I wanted to tell you that I'm planning to break up with him." I pondered for a moment and replied, "You're both adults. As long as you can take responsibility for your actions, you don't need to worry about me. However, I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with Han Yi's mother." Du Manor was extremely beautiful, and her smile was even more dazzling, but her next words shocked me greatly. "I never intended to be with him for the long term. Last month, my grandmother was hospitalized and urgently needed surgery, and my younger brother's medicine couldn't be stopped. I had no choice but to resort to this expedient measure." She didn't mention her parents, and I could probably guess the reason. After hearing her words, I felt that she was even more pitiful than meat. At least my grandfather had left me a way out, although it wasn't very reliable. I couldn't help asking, "So you want to cheat Hani out of his money?" Du Manor shook her head and explained, "I refused all the money he gave me. I am waiting for his mother to give me money. I would feel guilty if I took Han Yi's money. But if his mother gives me money to leave, I'll do as she wishes." Before leaving, Du Manor evaluated herself. "I'm not a good person." But I thought she was courageous. However, this truth was really astonishing, and I even had the illusion that I had suddenly mastered a new way of making money. The winter vacation arrived, and I planned to make a concerted effort to solve that difficult problem during this period. Hwasinian told me that this was a world-class problem. No wonder I hadn't been able to solve it after several years of calculation, and I even began to doubt my own talent for a while. However, all these were not important. What mattered was that solving this problem would earn me a large sum of money. Just thinking of this, my motivation soared, and I felt that I could stay up all night working on it. However, lured by the money, I still failed to solve the problem before the winter vacation ended, because the final exams came one after another. I had never participated in such a large-scale exam before. Although I had confidence in my abilities, I still crammed a bit before the exam. After all, I didn't want to lose to Hwasinian, and English had always been my weak subject. After the exams, everyone was happily preparing to go home for the spring festival. I didn't even bother to check the answers. I thought to myself, I'll share this good news with everyone once I solve that problem. Then I devoted myself wholeheartedly to the final problem-solving work. Finally, on the day before the spring festival, I organized the complete solution process and submitted it to a magazine. I didn't really care which magazine it was. After finishing all this, I shared the good news with Hwasinian at the first opportunity. Hwasinian suggested, "Great, let's celebrate together." I thought to myself, it was just a problem about the distribution of prime numbers, and it wasn't that difficult. There was no need to celebrate, was there? But I couldn't turn down his kind offer, so we decided to go out for a meal together. But who could have expected that as the spring festival approached, all the restaurants were closed, and we had to slink back home. Hwasinian said, "Well, then I'll cook." Coincidentally, there were still enough ingredients in my house. Of course, he wasn't the only one doing the cooking. We each cooked 3 dishes. However, to be honest, my cooking skills were indeed not as good as his in this round. I was slightly inferior. Hwasinian invited me to spend the spring festival at his home, but I politely declined. Similarly, I also refused the invitation from the Han family. The spring festival is a time for family reunions, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to go. Fortunately, Hwasinian didn't insist. He just brought me dumplings on the first day of the Lunar New Year, saying that they were made by his family, and they tasted really good. After the school resumed, I still hadn't received a reply from the magazine, but Hwasinian thought it was normal. He explained, "You don't really understand the significance of this problem in the mathematical community now. Those renowned mathematicians must be verifying your method." I replied confidently, There's absolutely no mistake in my calculation. I even double-checked it carefully after the proof. Coincidentally, I would be turning adult in a few days. Once I'm an adult, I won't have to be afraid of those adults anymore. They always force me to do many things I don't like under the pretext of doing what's best for me. However, before I could reach adulthood, I was pre-admitted by Q University, which I had long been yearning for. The school even hung up a banner with my name on it, different from the banner for Hani before. This time I was the pride of the school. After a fierce competition with a group of predecessors, I finally obtained the much-anticipated bonus. I immediately returned the money that the Han family had spent on me, and now we were even. The school suggested that I didn't need to attend classes anymore, and only needed to take the college entrance examination. However, I still found some time to go back to school and bid farewell to my classmates, whom I had been with for several months. Hwasinian also gave me a belated birthday gift, which was a moonstone bracelet. I had always been convinced that I would shine, but this brilliance came so rapidly and dazzlingly that I found it a bit difficult to adapt to it at first. Fortunately, I could still study quietly, and there were more teachers to answer my questions. I quickly adapted to this kind of life. After the college entrance examination results were announced, I became prominent again. Briefly, Hwasinian and I tied for the first place. The TV station wanted to interview us, but we both declined. After all, it was better to keep a low profile. No one expected that we would become popular just because of one photo, and we were called other people's children. Such praise made me feel more real. Hwasinian said we would meet at university, but in the end, we didn't fulfill our wish. He went to Q University, which I had been longing for, while I went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology for further study. The teachers at Q University believed that studying the most cutting-edge mathematical knowledge abroad would be more beneficial for my development, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology was the best choice. I agreed, and flew abroad the next day. Abroad, my classmates were all very intelligent. Although they didn't have my talent, they were extremely diligent, which compelled me to quicken my learning pace. Even so, it still took me 6 years to thoroughly master the knowledge there, and I also secured a job at the school, teaching students from time to time. The work there was easy, and the income was quite substantial. However, I resolutely chose to resign and return to my home country. My mentor and close friend tried to persuade me to stay. "Zhou, won't you consider it again and stay?" I firmly refused. How could I be corrupted by these sweet temptations? I wanted to complete my studies and return to serve my motherland. During these years abroad, the only thing that I couldn't stand was the food. My classmates and colleagues were all competing fiercely, and in desperation, I could only eat milk and bread for 6 years. After returning to China, I was eager to have a good meal first, but as soon as the plane landed, I was picked up by a special car from Q University, and the teachers from the neighboring J University could only stamp their feet in regret. I thought I was being kidnapped. The teachers from the two schools almost fought over me. Didn't understand what was going on until they handed me the employment application. I didn't hesitate to choose Q University. Although I couldn't study at Q University, being able to teach here fulfilled one of my dreams. The school's official website also updated my information simultaneously, listing one by one the achievements I had made over the years. I didn't waste these 6 years. In addition to solving the Riemann hypothesis during my high school years, I had also achieved a lot of results in the field of mathematics, participated in many competitions, and became somewhat famous in the mathematical community. With this resume, I was more than qualified to be a professor at Q University. I became a professor right after graduation. After returning to China, I also learned a lot of news about my former classmates. After breaking up, Hani went abroad. He returned to China 2 years ago and joined the family company. Now he is engaged. Du Manor got married as soon as she graduated. Her husband was her college classmate. Some other classmates, some became overworked office workers struggling for life and gradually going crazy. Some became romantic and free writers, and some were wealthy second generation relying on their families and doing nothing. Among these classmates, Hwasinian was the most famous. The white moonlight truly lived up to its name, and his development was smooth sailing. During his university years, he began to get involved in the investment field and made a fortune before graduating. Later, he gave a speech at a provincial-level meeting and even appeared on the news broadcast, completely becoming a youth representative. After the rise of the internet, he was even more keen to capture business opportunities and invested in many related industries. My experience abroad made me more aware of the development trend of the internet. The future will surely belong to the internet. I have spent almost my entire life in school, and the school environment is very suitable for me to conduct research. I occasionally teach students a couple of classes to see the future of our motherland, and I still devote most of my time to scientific research work. No wonder people say that mathematics is a fundamental subject. When other majors encounter problems that they can't solve, they often have to turn to our mathematics major for help in the end. Recently, Fields such as aerospace, physics, and biology have all asked me to help with calculations. I'm almost overwhelmed, and even almost made the students miss their classes. Being so busy and confused, I naturally didn't notice that someone had come to look for me 5 times, and each time they left disappointed. On this day, after successfully solving another difficult problem, I went to the cafeteria for a meal with my colleagues. The TV hanging in the cafeteria was broadcasting an interview with Husainian. I had just calculated a set of formulas for a professor in the School of Economics. This old man had taught Husainian before. After asking the professional questions, the host tried to dig out some explosive news. I heard that Mr. Hua was the white moonlight of the whole school during his high school years. Husainian now looks more mature and steady, but also a bit more distant, he replied helplessly. That's just what they're joking about. But I knew in my heart that it was absolutely true. The host then asked, there are many people pursuing you, but we haven't heard any progress in your love life. Haven't you met the person you like yet? Husainian's eyes instantly became as gentle as water. I have someone I like, she is my white moonlight. Seeing this scene, I don't know why, but I suddenly had a woman's sixth sense. Just then, I turned my head and saw Husainian standing at the cafeteria door, walking towards me step by step. I subconsciously touched the moonstone inlaid on the bracelet. After a long time, Husainian and I reminisced about the past. I asked curiously, how did you fall in love with me? Husainian smiled and replied, there's no special reason, you are so excellent, how could I not like you? In fact, every girl is like a brilliant star. As long as you bravely shine your light, there will always be someone attracted to you and gather with you to form a more dazzling light.